Hello, everyone. It's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. I just wanted to give a brief, well, maybe not brief, but a summary of the ambassadors webinar that was done a few days ago. A lot of good information in there, actually. And there are a few parts of it that we've been asked to keep confidential until they release it to the public. But I think the confidential stuff they showed us will be available to the public very shortly, and then we will all see it. Okay, so let's get started.
Sure. Well, I mean, the main hitch is that we're trying to finish our production intent design by the end of the year. We've been making amazing progress over the last few months. It's a lot of little things that creep in at the end that you have to finish up. But the team in San Diego and the team in Italy have been just doing amazing work at kind of buttoning up the design. And we hope to share something with you at the end of this call to kind of show you where we're at. But we've been aligning major partners for all of our production parts. And CPC has been a great partner in Italy, giving us references to other manufacturers for a lot of the things we need for production because they're so talented. And we found a kind of a surprising and great European supply chain that we weren't really considering 2 years ago. We thought that most of their content would come from North America or Asia, but now we're well entrenched in Europe. We found some great partners, and it's all kind of coming together to show you guys an amazing design by the end of the year here. So through the end of the year and beginning of next year, we'll finish up every bit of that tooling and every bit of that equipment, and all we need is, as we've said, one inspired billionaire to lend us the funding to get this going, and we can march into production in 2023. So I think we're in a great position. We're having great conversations with investors now. I think it will all come together. But tumultuous times in the investment markets. We have seen other of our solo mobility partners marching forth across the world, having a bit of trouble, but we wish them well and hope that all of their production aspirations come true too. But we have some great possibilities, and I can't thank the engineering team, production team, manufacturing team enough for all the progress they've made the last 3 months. And I think we're looking stellar for 2023.
They have the suppliers lined up. They have the quotes in, so they have everything ready. They just don't have the money yet. So that's where they seem to be at in terms of getting the assembly line ready. So everything is quoted out. They've figured out who their suppliers are, what they're buying. They know what the prices they've been quoted. They just need someone to write a check. And then there was the mention about other solar mobility companies having some issues. I think he's clearly referencing Sono Motors and what they're going through right now. And surprisingly, the Sono Motors thing seems to be working out fairly well. So maybe that's not as bad idea as I initially thought. Seems like more people are willing to take risky bets on that than I would have thought. And he also said that they're in talks with several investors, so there must be several large investors that they are talking with. So hopefully they can. I think that's what gives them some optimism because they have some big investors that they are currently talking to, which is good news. All right, so then talked a little about fundraising. They've raised 80 million so far, so 60 million from crowdfunding and 20 million from private investors. That's what it says there. So that they've gotten low volume solar production and they've gotten to Delta. They need 50 million, and it was fairly clear that this was 50 million additional dollars. So they need 50 million dollars to get to production. Though this is on top of their normal burn rate, so they need to raise $50 million pretty quick, because if they raise $50 million very slowly, they're going to burn through it just from salary and their just regular cash burn rate. So they're thinking of crowdfunding, grants, institutional. They've qualified for a grant for the California Energy Commission. That's the $21 million grant. It's a matching grant. Basically, they need to find money to match that, to show to the California Energy Commission that they're a viable company. They are currently trying to secure institutional capital through Series B funding for up to $200 million. This is what Marathon Capital is supposed to help them with. That was an announcement several months ago. that in the investment bank Marathon was going to help them get this institutional money. We have not heard that they've gotten any money through that, so I suspect that they have not gotten money through that. Um, so that's where they currently stand. Okay, and then this is a graph of the reservation growth. So you see they towards the end of Q1 of this year, they were at 15,700. Then it went up to 18,000. So that was a jump of about 3,000. And then in the next quarter up to 26,000, that was a jump of about 8,000. And then at the end of this quarter, they're at, you can't see it here, but it says 38,800. So that's a jump of 12,000. So that's a jump of 3,000 to 8,000 to 12,000. So they're experiencing more than linear growth. So a little bit, I wouldn't say exponential, but it's more than linear. It's kind of geometric growth of their reservations, which is good. All right, and then I thought the most interesting part of this video, other than the part that we can't show you currently because they haven't released the information to the public yet, was their question and answer session. So let's go through that.
This is a technical question regarding Delta. Let's see, will the Delta prototype have a carbon fiber body made by CPC, or will it have a fiberglass composite body like the previous prototypes? Yes, Delta represents our production intent design, so it will have a carbon fiber body made by CPC. That's a great question. Here's a question from Ambassador Ken. Can Delta prototypes be crash tested, or does that have to wait till the pre-production phase? Yes, that crash testing and validation is part of what we're calling the Delta phase. So the first step of the Delta phase is hopefully we'll have some exciting news for you by the end of the year. We'll be revealing, as Chris said, our production intent Delta design. After that, then we'll go through the phases of crash testing and validation and finally get to the point of starting deliveries, which is, I know, the part that everyone on this call is really excited about. So
okay, so they are planning to crash test Delta, which means it sounds like even if we were to get the money right away, we are still a long ways from delivery because first they would have to, so they haven't finished the design yet. That's hopefully coming by the end of this year. And then they have to crash test these things. So they have to build them and then crash test them. So I think we're like over a year away, actually, after hearing that.
we will be crash testing them. Let's see. When will we see a video or other info on the infotainment system? I know this is one that we get a lot. We don't have those details yet. We will be sharing more of those details as that we come along. So we'll keep you guys posted on that. Sorry that we don't have all of the information, and some things we have, but we're kind of keeping close to the vest as well. So we
I would add in that generally we've been focused more on the mechanical nature of finishing the Delta design, because once you have a fastener in one spot, or once you have a part that has to go some certain place, that can't change once you tool it. But the software and the firmware can change, all the way up until we're producing the vehicle. So we've really been focused on the mechanical stuff first. And the software and firmware stuff have been lagging some. So it hasn't been at the top of the priority list.
Great.
Okay, so I thought that was a great point that Chris made. So remember in that video of them driving where Quincy and Chris McCammon were driving the Gamma around, and I noticed that their UI has not changed since fully charged. Like the time was the same, the charge state was exactly the same. And so I think their UI, we wanted to see their UI like showing the solar charge and the efficiency and all that stuff. And none of that apparently was done. And now we understand why. It's kind of like last priority on their list. And it makes total sense what Chris Anthony said. It's true. Like you can tweak that stuff while you're building up their assembly line, because they need to get that stuff done first. So that makes total sense. So now I understand why that's on the back burner.
We will share as because Brian's team is doing awesome stuff on the user interface side.
Yep, that's great. One of our original Aptera team members is the founder of Andromeda, who's working on all those on all the infotainment. So that's wonderful. Thank you. Here's a question about solar. Are you using SunPower solar cells? Yes, Maxion and SunPower Gen 3 cells are the cells that we're using. You might have seen the recent announcement that we did with Maxion. They're a great partner for us. We'll hopefully be doing more stuff with them. We want them to do some blog posts on our site and some other technical stuff. So more to come with that relationship. But yes, we are using SunPower and Maxion cells.
Technically, Maxion is a separate company. So Maxion is the company that's supplying our solar cells. They had an exclusive agreement with SunPower for quite a while, but they do not have that exclusive agreement anymore. So there's SunPower builds panels over here. Maxion builds the solar cells over here. We're getting supply from Maxion and working with them on next generation cell technology, which is pretty cool and something that we hope to make available to you very quickly.
Perfect. Thanks for clarifying that, Chris.
Okay, so I think, unless I'm wrong, SunPower made Maxion cells and they spun off Maxion as a separate company. So Maxion is a spin-off company of SunPower. And what Chris Anthony said, it sounds like they are working with some next generation product, not the Gen 3 stuff. So there may be, depending on when it actually goes into production, maybe they'll be using a different Maxion cell, not the Gen 3 cell. Unclear.
Yes. Let's see. How will the Aptera be heated? If it's by heat pump, that's good because this person lives in the Seattle area where it's cold at winter, and they need plenty of reliable and efficient heat for Aptera. We will not have a heat pump at the start of production. We'll be using a more traditional heater and air conditioner. However, I believe that is something we're definitely looking to add in, the future, but we will not have that at launch. Let's see, from David, solar skin rear spoiler, solar skin, it's a tongue twister. Solar skin rear spoiler may be added for sportiness. And the answer is that would destroy aerodynamics. So no, you could do that post-delivery. We wouldn't do that prior. If you're really looking for the most efficient vehicle possible, the most efficient vehicle on the planet, that would definitely add a little additional resistance on that. But you can do whatever you want after you have your Aptera. And we want to
it's actually in the name, rear spoiler. It actually spoils the air. So we do not want to spoil the air off of the Aptera. You want to be as neutrally efficient as possible. So you don't want any downforce or upforce. Front spoilers and rear spoilers are just not part of the Aptera game.
Yep. Thank you. Question about our body panel parts that are being produced by CPC. Will they be painted prior to receipt by Aptera? The final answer on this is they will not be painted. They will be wrapped. So that is the final decision. I don't know, Chris, if you want to add anything else to that.
Paint shops in traditional automotive account for over 40% of the capital equipment needed to start up a plant. And it also contributes 80% of the emissions from that plant. So it's a very polluting thing to atomize solvents in paint. And we're trying to stay as far away from painting as possible. One, because it's a lot lower CapEx, so it makes it cheaper for us to get into production. And two, films are just a lot more environmentally friendly. The cool thing about films too is if you don't like your yellow Aptera after 4 years, you can change it for a couple $1,000 and make it a blue Aptera or a green Aptera or a gray Aptera. So we think there's a lot of great flexibility, and it totally fits with our ethos.
So it's still unclear whether they're using vinyl wrap or polyurethane paint protection film. Cosmetic paint protection films, from what I've researched, are more durable. So I'm hoping that they use that. And someone asked that, but the answer wasn't clear.
Thanks. This is a question about parking assist. Wondering if it's going to be difficult for people to park in narrow garages. And we wanted to let you guys know there will be ultrasonic sensors to help you with parking. So that is something that you will not have to worry about. Another question regarding a trailer receiver and wiring. So did that great idea make the final cut? Unfortunately, not for the start of production, but definitely something that we are looking at for the future. And I'm going through these kind of fast, guys, because we have a lot of them and I want to answer as many as we can before we move on to other things that we want to share with you. So this is a question from a Florida ambassador. Just with Delta scheduled and delayed production, is production really dependent on another funding round? Getting into production, as we mentioned earlier on the slide, is funding dependent. So that is something that is our top priority for our team right now, working really hard to get there, very optimistic about the prospects and relationships that we're building. But yes, it is funding dependent.
I would say maybe a comment on that is, we have over 38,000 orders for the Aptera now. So we can't just eke into production. We can't get into production building 200 Aptera a year. That doesn't fulfill 38,000 orders. So we need to get into volume production, and volume production costs money for volume production tools and volume production equipment. So, we want to spread solar mobility as far and wide as possible. And that's going to take some big funding partner to step up here in the next few months to help us get into production right. So we want to get into volume production. We want to deliver tens of thousands of Aptera very quickly. We don't want to step into production with a couple hundred. We could do that for a lot less money, possibly money that we could just crowdfund, but we don't want to do that. We want to get into volume production to fulfill as many of these orders as quickly as possible as we can.
Yeah, thank you.
So that is a decision that many of you guys are second guessing. I think a lot of you guys are like, let's hand build a few, get them out there, and get them out in customer hands. And that may be a good idea, but that is not the way Aptera is going, guys. I think they're thinking, if you hand build them, they're gonna have to get a different set of tooling to do those things, and they want to get, they realize they have like close to 40,000 orders, so they do need to get into volume production. And so they're just concentrating on that and just skipping the intermediate step of like kind of boutique building cars, because I think boutique building them might be good from a marketing standpoint, but I think that the issue isn't that, but that they have plenty of orders. They just need the funding to get into production, and getting more orders doesn't help them actually at this point. It's possible that getting them out on the streets might attract some big donors and get the attention of some people. So I think that's a plus minus. I trust that they're very smart people over at Aptera, and they've thought about the pros and cons of going straight into volume production versus kind of doing some low volume production by hand at first and then trying to get to volume production later. And they've decided to go straight to volume production, which I'm going to respect them for that.
That's great. Let's see, a question from Rex. Has the frunk disappeared? Yes, it has disappeared. There is no frunk. No frunk any longer.
Got a big trunk though.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see, question about the notorious third seat option. It is something on our roadmap. Again, after we expand to deliver mini Aptera, it's not something that we're actively working.
Okay, so the three things that have definitely died are there is no frunk, there's no trailer hitch, and there's no third seat. Those things are not happening in the first round. Those are things that they are thinking about in the later generations.
Working on at the moment for this variation. Let's see, camera hardware. Do you think the system may be capable of third-party autonomous driving in the future? And tell us more about the camera hardware. So we'll have a vision for initial release, vision system, left, right, and top mirror is what we have. And then definitely looking at testing autonomous driving capabilities and hoping that those are something that we can add on for the future, absolutely, beyond our launch vehicles. Let's see.
I would add in that we do not plan for our heads-up vision system that gives you kind of 180-degree rear view vision of your vehicle to be linked with our ADAS features. We expect them to be separate systems, and that's how we're developing them now. But we expect to be able to offer that soon, and we're working with some really cool technologies in that area.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a little surprising to me. Like they have rear view cameras, but they're not going to be integrated with the ADAS system. I'm not sure why you would want to do it that way. I mean, you have the information to give you rear visibility. Why wouldn't the ADAS system want to use that information? So, my theory is that they're working with Comma AI, and it's possible that that's going to be a totally separate system, and they don't work with the rear system. But I just kind of think that it would be nice to use those cameras since you have them for the ADAS system. But clearly, that is not the direction that they're going, and they are working with someone. It sounds like it's not something that's going to be available at launch, but is a software thing that may be available soon afterward. And I think I'm okay with that. Okay, and then the last thing that was kind of interesting was there was a Q&A section where Chris Anthony was actually answering questions from some people. So let's go through them. Sentry mode, and then Chris Anthony says, yes, eventually, smiley face. So we know Chris Anthony drives a Tesla, and he likes a lot of Tesla stuff, and Sentry mode is a Tesla thing. This is something I've asked them several times as well, and they've told me no, or maybe, and now it sounds like it's yes, eventually, which means not in the launch vehicles, but maybe a software upgrade. Okay, from the comments by Chris, does this mean you need a large investor to begin production? The answer is yes. How about the Department of Energy's loan program office? They're working on it. I believe this is the ATVM loan that's being referenced. What is the plan if a large single investor doesn't materialize? Keep moving with smaller investors. So this is, I don't know that small investors are they going to get them to 50 million. I think this is an optimistic statement. So how long can Aptera last without a large investor? A larger investor allows us to begin purchasing manufacturing equipment, tooling, so we can begin production. Without that, we are just continuing to engineer the vehicle while raising crowdfunding slowly. So part of my confidence in Aptera has been your commitment to the mission despite the challenge in balancing investment and control. As a founder, I am experiencing similar challenges in sourcing capital without compromising on the mission. What is the biggest compromise you had to make so far to receive equity funding up to this point? We haven't had to compromise anything so far. Crowdfunding has been great, and our investors really believe in our mission. Sometimes big investors have opposing views. So that may be one of the problems, that they have some big investors that are interested in Aptera, but they want Aptera to do certain things that the founders are not agreeing with, so they're maybe turning down that funding. Updates on the credits, we know they don't qualify for the credits, but they're working on it. How's it going with federal approval of cameras replacing mirrors? Very slowly, so probably not happening. Okay, so those are the questions that were asked, and that's basically all the important stuff that was mentioned at the ambassadors webinar. There was a little bit about fleet sales. I guess they had their first fleet customer or a potential customer, because obviously they're not making cars yet, so can't be a real customer yet. But they have a fleet manager, and I think that's a great market for the Aptera fleet sales. I had a video about that before. I think it'd be perfect for a fleet. It's inexpensive, maintenance is low, fuel costs are low, and it's a very, very visually arresting vehicle. So you'll get a lot. It's like free advertisement for the company, whichever company uses that as a fleet vehicle. So lots of advantages to using Aptera as a vehicle. So I think that's a great idea. Okay, well, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks as always to our supporting members, and have a great day.